workshop to kick off the seminar. We are here at Parallel Workshops and hang on. Okay, let me move on to some ground rules. Thank you very much for coming on time. We will have 2 workshop sessions today. The current one will move from 10 to 12 o'clock, and the next one would be from 2 to 4. Okay. And please mute yourself and switch off your video. I think we have disabled the microphone and also the audio. And do not interfere with the speaker as they speak. Yeah. Now, when we open up for Q&A, kindly introduce yourself, which institution you are from, before raising your question during the Q&A session. So for Dr. Andy's session in this APEL, he will have the Q&A in between the workshops, yeah? Another avenue for you to put up your questions is in the chat box. All right, I will try to gather the questions best possible. We are all here to learn and to share, therefore do maintain a positive attitude. And all chat messages are meant for everyone, all right? So for mobile users, for those who are joining us using their mobile phone, please note that some of the Zoom functions may not be visible to you. Therefore, we encourage you to switch to your desktop or your laptop devices. All right. This is our current section. We have 4 tracks, track A, B, C, and D. And you are currently in track A, flexible education ecosystem towards 21st century. And the session that we have for this morning between 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock is on APEL A, C, and Q, presented by Dr. Andy. Allow me to introduce Dr. Andy. Dr. Andy is the Pro Vice Chancellor in Help University in Malaysia. He has held senior administrative position in various conventional and open distance learning higher education institutions in Malaysia. He is one of the pioneer staff who work closely with the founding members in establishing 2 tertiary education institutions in Malaysia, and they are Alliance University College of Medical Sciences and Wawasan Open Universities. So his fields of interest and areas of specialization are his fields of interest and areas of specializations are in quality assurance learning, APEL. Yeah, Dr. Andy himself, he is the chairman of the APEL, A, C, and Q, and he is part of the committee or the chairman who organizes the committee to come up with the guideline for APEL, A, C, and Q. Therefore, we do not have any better other speaker or more qualified speaker than Dr. Andy himself. Dr. Andy, over to you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well, Dr. Andy.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sim, for your generous introductory remarks. Now, this is a very different way of having a SieQA seminar, because throughout my life experience with SieQA, we used to have the face-to-face interaction whether in a specific venue or whether it is in a IPT or IPTS. But certainly it's a joy to see familiar faces, though it is just an icon, or even familiar names hidden behind this specific icon. Now, we are all here this morning with a common purpose to see and filter the elements in the ecosystem of a flexible education system. Now, allow me, colleagues who may not be from Malaysia or who may not be fluent or rather may not know Bahasa, allow me to just offer a simple poem to lighten our heart in this morning. Bunga melati kembang setaman, dipetik orang bawa ke pekan. Apel ACQ dalam genggaman, nafas baru dalam pendidikan. Dan semoga pantun yang dilafazkan tadi dapat membelai jiwa dan merangsang minda kita dalam pagi yang mulia ini. So with that, again, thank you very much to Dr. Sim and the organizers of SieQA 2021. You have done a great job in coordinating all this, and we wish all of us a warm welcome. And allow me to share my slide. Just a second.
Yes, Dr. Andy, we
Dr.
can
Sim,
see your slide.
you can see my slide. Yeah, great,
Yes.
great. Now, in the past 30 seconds or so, the picture on the screen may have captured your attention. And we may be, or some of you may be wondering whether did Andy display the correct deck of slides or whether you are in the right track. You certainly are in the right track. We have begun to learn when we are still a baby. We learn to sit, as you can see in this in this simple pictorial presentation of this cute little baby. We began to learn to sit, to crawl, to stand, and finally to walk. And we continue to learn as well. As you can see this during our childhood days and into the adolescent stage. And we never stop learning even when we step into our golden years. And this is why the logo designed by MQA on APEL, I'm not sure whether most of us in this seminar this morning would have realized that apart from these two human beings, the silhouette in this APEL logo, there is also a tagline around the peripheral of the circle. If we zoom in clearly onto this logo, you will see the tagline reflected on the top right: learning never stops. As we know, learning is continuous. Learning changes from moment to moment. And in this age of digital disruption, we are mindful that learning no longer confines within the four walls of the brick and mortar traditional classroom. And in this context, APEL A, which is for access, C for credit transfer for specific courses, and Q for the academic qualifications, came into existence in Malaysia to recognize the prior experiential learning. Now, all of us has a story to relate. Every one of us in this seminar has our own story. And my story today covers 5 broad aspects: the types and objectives of APEL, the emergence of APEL, and all the policies related to APEL. This is where we will look at the respective policies on APEL A, C, and Q. We will also be looking briefly at the instruments that are adopted to assess the recognition of prior experiential learning, be it for A, C, or Q. And finally, we'll be looking at how IPT or higher education provider in Malaysia can implement APEL A, C, and Q. Now, I believe all of us here, or majority of us here this morning, would be quite familiar with A and C and may still want to know more about AC or particularly the Q, the APEL for academic qualifications. Now, before I begin, probably I would need Dr. Sim's help to project the questionnaire. Dr. Sim,
Hi, a very
yeah,
good day,
yeah,
everyone. So we are going to have an interaction session, and this would be done via the Padlet wall. So I'm going to hang on, just put this in the chat. Okay, all right. If all of you can click on that, I will also be sharing screen. That will bring you to this Padlet wall. And on this Padlet wall, there are 3 questions that Dr. Andy would like you all to answer. How do you answer the question? By just clicking at this plus sign. So when you click plus sign, you would be able to add your answer to this particular column. And of course, you can answer using text. You can also Google for an image and upload the image. So I can see that somebody has updated it. Yeah. So please put down your answers and we will go through them later.
yeah. Probably we spend about 3 minutes, colleagues, on this simple interactive exercise.
really great. We are getting quite a number of responses here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, colleagues.
Dr. Andy, do you want me to stay at the Padlet wall?
Yes, yes, please, Dr. Sim, just for a brief moment.
Okay. So let me just go scroll through, yeah. So most of it is new to me, fair, recognized learning, not much. Looks like you have an audience who's ready to learn, Dr. Andy.
Yeah. Or Dr. Sim, could you project the
Oh,
Padlet
sorry.
wall?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
Sorry.
we can't see.
Thank you.
I need everybody to be on the same platform to understand the
Hmm.
diversity of participants we have
Hmm.
this morning. Perhaps let us go through this together very, very quickly. There are three questions here that are actually meant to gauge how diverse the group would be in this particular morning session, because we are actually looking at three major APEL, the accreditation of prior experiential learning. A is for access. C is actually credit transfer for course basis. And Q is the academic qualification. Now, the first question here, very simple. How much do you know about APEL? So from what we could see here together as a team, it looks like there are still a combination of colleagues here, some who reflected or indicated that they would know a lot or extensively, or some may just be a beginner in this particular area known as APEL. Now, for example, this question, I do understand the purpose of APEL, and etc. and etc. And there are also some of us here who are beginners, as you can see here as a beginner, and some who actually are able to actually encapsulate what the spirit of APEL is all about. So it looks like we are actually looking or managing a crowd that has diverse background on the understanding of APEL. It's all right. At least we know how the crowd would be like this morning. And we also move on to ask a very simple question pertaining to AC and Q, which I think we have mentioned a couple of times this morning, that A is for the admission access, C is for credit transfer, and Q is meant for the award of academic qualification. Again, we are seeing various category of so-called participants or learner this morning. Now, rest assured, at the end of this session today, you or all of us here will walk away understanding what exactly is AC and Q and how it is implemented in Malaysia. Not in detail, but at least the framework of the implementation of AC and Q. Then over to the challenges. Why we are raising this question on what are the form of challenges that some higher education providers may have encountered, because over here, I believe majority of us would have taken in students who have APEL A entry requirements, because APEL A was first implemented way back in 2011. That was the first batch of students entering higher education provider or institutions through APEL A, 2011. And 2016 was where the Minister of Education launched the implementation of APEL C 2016. So it is like 5 years from 2016 until now. There are about 30 over institutions, 30 institutions, I would say, that have been granted approval to run APEL C. And this is why you will see, or all of us here in this morning session would see various comments are reflected in this screen here. Some will be able to tell us the challenges, some may not, and some may even ask about documentation, implementation process, because perhaps the institution may not have implemented APEL C in their own institution. And those who have implemented have actually indicated the challenges uh, with respect to the assessment instrument, with respect to the panel of experts, and etc. and etc. So, what we are looking at in these three questions would be an overview of the challenges or the barriers that probably we need to overcome when we are implementing A, C, and Q. So, allow me to share. Can I go back to the screen, Dr.
Um,
Sim?
yes, Dr. Andy, but I would just like to highlight I've created the column questions here because I realized that when we put it in the chat, it may disappear. So if you have any questions, you can also come back to this wall and put it here and we can revisit them later. So over to you, Dr. Andy.
All right. Are you able to see my screen, Dr. Sim?
Not yet. Have you started screen sharing?
Yep. I'll share it again.
Yeah, right now we can see it.
All
Thank you.
right, great, great, great. So coming back to this storyboard that I mentioned just now, and we will also need to link to the purpose of why we are all here this morning. We are all here with a common purpose this morning, which is to see and filter the elements in the ecosystem of a flexible education. And that is exactly what SieQA 2021 is all about, especially for this track, flexible education ecosystem towards the 21st century. So over here, if you can see this, I hope you'll be able to at least see some of the text in the circle in the middle there. Flexible education covers various aspects from the point of the access, which is 1 o'clock here, top right, 1 o'clock access, down to the recognition of prior learning, and to the content, delivery, teaching learning methods, assessment, and to the award. So this simple slide that we are projecting here actually encapsulates the entire landscape or the ecosystem of a flexible education. So our focus this morning, in fact, is on this access and the RPL, which is the accreditation of prior experiential learning. So the text that I'm highlighting yellow here, A, C, and Q, are one of the areas under the flexible education system. Of course, this morning or tomorrow or so, we will be covering the various aspects as you can see in the circle here. So moving on, uh, if you remember just now, this was the storyboard, and we are going to start off with the types and objectives of APEL. Now, I understand there are various category of learners here. Some may know, some may know not much, some may know a lot about these three types of APEL. But I think it is good for us to frame our thoughts and mind and demarcate these three different types of access, credit, and qualification. So APEL here again, let me reiterate this once more. The A is for access, C is specific to the courses in the program, and Q is actually the entire academic qualifications. So whether it is A or C or Q, they are all looking at the prior experiential learning of the learners. And if colleagues, if you do notice, under the top or under the bottom of each wording here, the access credit, you will see a small print of blue text. Now, the reason why we have MQA here is to tell us that this is actually centrally monitored by MQA, which means it can be an assessment conducted by MQA themselves, or MQA has appointed what we call the APEL Assessment Center to evaluate the prior experiential learning to see the candidates are prepared or ready to undertake tertiary studies. So this is where it is still centrally monitored by MQA. Now, credit here is on institution base, meaning any institution who would explore implementing RPLC, they need to apply to MQA. So when MQA grant them the permission or approval to run RPLC, they can actually roll out this RPLC to every faculty in the institution, to every program in the institution. So what I'm trying to indicate here is that the application to conduct APEL-C is institution based, meaning we don't need to submit APEL-C for individual programs. I hope all of you are clear onto this A and C. Now, in terms of qualifications, which was recently launched by MQA in January 2021, this is actually program-based. So meaning if we have 10 programs, let's say I'm an higher education provider A, I'm higher education provider A, HEPA. There are 10 programs that I would like to recognize prior experiential learning and to offer award of academic qualifications. To do so, I must seek permission or approval from MQA. And for me, as a higher education provider, I need to submit 10 applications separately to MQA to conduct this APEL Q. So that is the broad difference between A, C, and Q. I hope with this simple explanation, we are now on the same platform. Now, before I proceed on, would there be any question from the participants? Feel free to ask your question either through the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we will be more than glad to entertain your question.
Mm, I'm not seeing any questions on the Padlet wall or the chat board. And
All right, great.
yeah,
Whenever you see any question, Dr. Sim, please do alert us and we'll address the question then. Because I think if we were to push the Q&A towards the end of the 2-hour session, I'm afraid we may forget what we have discussed or even looking at the areas that we need to seek clarification. So it is good that as and when you have any ambiguity that you need to seek clarifications, please do not hesitate to either post your questions in the chat or you can personally come live by asking the questions. All right.
yeah.
Now moving on here. Now we have prepared a simple chart here. And of course, these are all, we would like to express our gratitude to colleagues in MQA, Prof. Hasman, and all those bargain standard who have helped us in producing very, very good slides. So this deck of slides that you are seeing this morning is actually a collaborative effort between MQA and some of the panel members here. And certainly, and because I've heard some requests through Dr. Sim that whether we will be able to share the slides, the answer is definitely a yes. We will share the slides with you after the, 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 the seminar. So don't worry about the content. You'll be getting the slides because we practice what the open educational resources are professing, all right? Sharing of knowledge and content. So over here, you will see these three tracks, the A, the C, and the Q. A, as you all would be able to view from the slide, is actually at the entry point. So meaning at the entry point here, I may not have a formal qualification, but I will be assessed based on my prior experiential learning. So if I have what it takes to undertake a tertiary studies, then I'll be given a passport. The passport will be actually granted by MQA. And this passport would then allow me to knock at any door of the higher education providers in Malaysia. So this is basically A. So when we talk about C, it is actually using our prior experiential learning, and seeking for credit transfer in some of the courses that may be relevant to the experiential learning that we have acquired over the years. So if you see here, there is this block which I have colored blue here. And this block is actually indicating that the individual or the learners are granted 30% of the credit transfer into the program. So this is what APEL C is all about. You still follow the conventional track of the program. You still follow the conventional track of the programs with X modules or X number of courses, but you'll be given 30% of the credit transfer. Now, finally, if you can see, this is actually intended to blow up the text to show you how APEL Q would disrupt the landscape of education in terms of offering of academic qualification. Now, you will realize here in the entire track, there isn't any modules like what you see in A and C. In A, you will see the module until N. C also, you will see an indication of the module until N. But here, there is no modules. Only thing you will see is the capstone course. So for an individual with substantial prior experiential learning can be considered for an APEL Q, meaning an award of the academic qualifications. And to be given the award of the academic qualifications, the learner has to go through 4 main stages of assessment, 4 main stages. As you can see in those boxes that are highlighted red, the person needs to present a collection of documentary evidence of their prior learning. All right, so this is going to be assessed through what we call a portfolio assessment. And later on, the assessment will also be in the form of field and validation visit, meaning the assessors that we appoint would actually go on site to evaluate the prior learning of the learners. And finally, there will be another challenge test that will be set by the institution to actually test all the program learning outcomes or program learning outcomes that may not be covered in the portfolio or the field validation visit. So these are the primary three stages that the candidates need to undergo before they actually hop into registering for a capstone course. Now, every academic programs that are offered by higher education institution would have a course known as a capstone course or capstone courses. And these are courses that amalgamates all the learning outcomes in a program. We will go into this detail shortly when we discuss APEL Q, probably a bit in depth later. So
Um,
these are the three tracks here. Yes, Dr. Sim.
Dr. Andy, on the Padlet wall, there are 4 questions. Allow me to just share the wall a bit, yeah, so
Yeah.
that they will, audience will be able to see it as well. So we have, can APEL A be as simplified as exam results, for example, STPM of a student? Then the second one we have, um, so the application for APEL A is then made to MQA and not the institution the candidate wish to apply. The third one is who is qualified to assess APEL Q. And the last one is any university in Malaysia accepting APEL Q? What about Sunway?
All right. Great question. Thank you, guys. Let us take this question very, very quickly and very briefly. Could it be simplified as A as the exam results, STPM of a student? Now, I would try to decipher this question at the best possible. Here, when we say simplify, we would still need to ensure, because we are assessing the prior experiential learning of the students. And each of us here this morning, we come with various life experiences or work experiences, and we are unique in that way. So meaning not, or rather, we will never find any two individuals that would have similar life experiences or work experiences. We are unique in our own ways. So when we say simplify, not so much on simplification, but on the instruments that we adopt, because we want to ensure the credibility and integrity of the assessment. Otherwise, people will lose confidence onto the system, or candidates who are admitted through APEL A. So we cannot be looking at just one exam results for admission through APEL A. In APEL A, as usual, we'll be looking at three forms of learning: the formal, the informal, and non-formal learning, which we will run through shortly as well, because we need to understand what is A and what are the forms of learning in the A. So if you're talking about STPM, if the person comes with STPM intending to pursue a bachelor degree, that can be a direct admission. So the person need not go through A. The person can be admitted directly. So free the person from the how to say, the protocol and procedures of A. But if the person comes with STPM and is at least 30 years of age in the year of the application, the person can be considered for APEL A admission into a master degree program. We will come to this again shortly. Now, the next question, application for institution APEL A, I presume, is made to MQA and not the institution they wish to apply. Now, right now, I think there is a centrally monitored system by MQA whereby any students who would like to be considered for admission into A, via A, they need to register, express their interest through the MQA website. I will show that in a short while as well. So it looks like the questions we are raising here will be covered shortly in the presentation. It has to go through MQA, and in the MQA website, the learners would actually indicate where are the assessment center that I would like to go to be assessed for APEL AS admission? So that would be the question. And who is qualified to assess APEL Q? Again, we will cover this under the panel of experts, or rather the instruments to be undertaken when we roll out APEL Q. Now, MQ is any university in Malaysia accepting APEL Q? This is a very good question, but we have just implemented APEL Q or launched the GGP of APEL Q guidelines to good practices in January. So what we are doing right now, or MQA is doing right now, they are looking at this rolling out of this mechanism with several institutions doing a pilot test. We expect this to complete by May or June, and by July, they would then open it to all higher education institutions to submit the application to conduct APEL Q. Now, APEL Q has fixed qualifications for entry. Nothing refers to experiential learning. Can you comment? Yes, I would also show you the MQF track, Malaysian qualification track. And indeed, there is a track that shows students can be admitted through what they call the lifelong learning track. And this is where experiential learning is recognized there. All right, so that covers the question. And is MQA open to overseas students, or is APEL A, open to overseas students or only local in Malaysia? And for the moment, the A, when we started A in 2011, the spirit is actually to provide equity and equality in education for learners who are local, who are residents in Malaysia, because we want to ensure that these local learners are taken care of and given enough seats in the higher education provider in Malaysia to pursue higher education. And that was the spirit why we limit to local students then. I also understand that right now, APEL A is also extended to expatriate staff in Malaysia, only expatriate staff. And I believe MQA and MOHG will be revisiting this to open it up to international students or foreign students later on. But right now, it is only limited to expatriate staff residing in Malaysia. So I hope that covers the question. So I'm glad there are so many questions now coming on board, and probably let me come back to this to address some of the concerns or questions that have been raised. Now, before I move on, probably I need your help again, Dr. Sim, to play the video on APEL that was developed by MQA. At least we will now reinforce or strengthen what exactly is APEL and who have benefited from APEL. Over to you, Dr. Sim, please.
Sorry, we will reshare with audio, yeah?
Yeah, because I couldn't hear the...
Yeah. There's another question on the chat also, Dr. Andy. Maybe you can take it later.
Yeah, we'll take it later. Still couldn't hear the audio. Yeah, good.
Yeah, first, I would say that, I'm so grateful that there is such thing as APEL in the country, because this actually supported student or individual like me.
Right? And that's what APEL means to me. When you talk about APEL, you talk about show me what you can do. Right? When you talk about APEL, You talk about, I've got something to prove, right? And no other measurement, any traditional measurement will be able to put a needle to it, right?
Saya rasa gembira sangat sebab saya ada satu option untuk mendapat satu tahap akademik lah kalau saya mencuba APEL.
Jadi APEL ni dia membuka ruang kepada kami lah. Lamalah saya menunggu MQA wujudkan program ni.
As I mentioned earlier, APEL, it is very important because you're kind of like opening the opportunity for people who do not have a chance to further their studies, or maybe could not meet up with the qualification and so forth, but still contributing to the development of the country. This might be another chance that how we could actually improvise and also to help.
Anyone should have access to lifelong learning opportunities that can help them acquire the knowledge and skills needed. At a national level, the blueprint of enculturation of lifelong learning for Malaysia is based on 4 strategies. The partial feature of this strategy was explained according to 3 different types of learning. MQA's main role is to implement the Malaysian Qualifications Framework MQF. It is a basis for quality assurance of higher education and encourage lifelong learning initiatives. Accreditation of Prior Experiential Learning (APEL) is a systematic process that involves the identification, documentation, and assessment of prior experiential learning. APEL determines the extent to which an individual has achieved the desired learning outcomes for access to a program of study and/or award of credits. Candidates make applications to MQA and then complete the APEL assessment. APEL certification received can be used to gain admission into a higher education institution. APEL for Credit Award allows candidates the opportunity for course exemption through their accumulated work experiences. The challenge test and portfolio are 2 popular assessment methods used in APEL-C. Now, you can use APEL to graduate faster.
Jadi terima kasih kepada APEL sebab menyediakan option ini untuk kita semua rakyat Malaysia sebenarnya.
And you know what? This is not where it ends. This is where it starts. This is where it all begins.
Saya sarankan supaya cuba hubungi APEL dan dapatkan maklumat lanjut.
Jangan fikir banyak, daftar aja dulu.
Bergunalah untuk kita ambil opportunity ni untuk sambung belajar.
So it's just like lifelong learning for me. So it's here, the opportunity is really in front of you.
The real question that APEL asks you, are you worthy? If you are, come to APEL.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sim. And I hope with this video, it would actually motivate us to help a lot of learners out there who may not have the opportunity dulu or previously because of their family commitment, the commitment which they need to actually stop their higher education, pursuit of higher education because of helping the parents or chipping in to earn extra income to support the family. So as you can see in this video created by MQA and in the spirit of lifelong learning, this is not the end of a journey, but this is rather a new beginning for most of us. And you can see there are so many people who have benefited through APEL A and C. And there is one particular gentleman, I think you would be happy to see the glowing face of that particular student with special ability. And that person is now pursuing higher education, given a chance to pursue higher education in a specific area of studies in one of the higher education institutions in Malaysia. So what we have seen just now from this video would be a testament that APEL Q has helped a lot of learners in promoting equity and equality in education under the Sustainable Development Goal track number 4 under UNESCO. So coming back to the deck of slides, let me share again. Let me know when you're able to see the slides.
Yes, we can see the slide.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sim. Now, this is what exactly the video was trying to highlight, that APEL is the accreditation of prior experiential learning. It covers 3 main aspects here. Number 1, it is a very systematic process. And of course, when we talk about the systematic process, what kind of processes that we are actually looking at? And it involves 3 main processes here. Whether it is APEL A, C, or Q, it still looks at these 3 processes. Identifying the prior learning, documenting those prior learning, and assessing those prior learning. Whether I'm assessing it for entry, A, or I'm assessing it for course credit transfer, or I'm assessing it based for the award of academic qualification, the Q. You name it, it will all go through these 3 main processes. And finally, what kind of learning am I seeking in that unique individual that come forward expressing the interest to either do A or C or Q? And there are these 3 forms of learning: formal, non-formal, and informal learning. So I hope by the end of this 2-hour session, when we exit this platform, online platform, and if any academics or your superior would even ask you, what have you learned from this 2-hour session, APEL A, C, and Q? Could you just tell me in some simple words? So remember these 3 main bullet points. It is a process, and the process is systematic, and it covers 3 areas involving the learning of the students that we need to identify, we need to document, we need to assess. So please, fellow colleagues, at the very least, when you leave this session this morning, I hope you'll be able to share or tell colleagues who are not here this morning, this is what I have learned. At least these 3 bullets to tell people what APEL is all about. All right. So moving on here, of course, when we talk about learning, we talk about the 3 forms of learning: the formal, the informal, and the non-formal learning. So this pictorial representation here would basically provide cues or hints as what exactly is embedded in formal, non-formal, informal learning. Now, for us to either implement A, C, or Q, I think it is very, very crucial that every assessors that are involved, for advisors or moderators that are involved, must be able to segregate these 3 forms of learning. If you are unable to segregate these 3 forms of learning, then it will be a tough process when it comes to assessment of the prior learning. And for us to interact with the learners, as we mentioned just now, every learners, they have unique individual learning experience. It is how we speak to them, and it is how we interact with them, so that we can actually solicit those or unlock the unique experience and job skills of the learners. We have to unlock this unique experience of them. And when we unlock, we put them into these 3 blocks: the formal, non-formal, informal. So coming back to this particular question, what exactly constitutes a formal, non-formal, or informal? Very simple. Very, very, very simple, colleagues. When we talk about formal learning, understand these key words. When we talk about formal learning, it is all about structured learning. And in this structured learning, it will lead to a formal qualification or recognition. Remember, the keyword is formal qualification or recognition. For example, let me take for example, some of us here may have taken Form 3 in the form of SRP or LCE, Lower Certificate Examination, or PMR, all right, last time. And for example, SPM, MCE, GCE O level, diploma, certificate, degree, they are all considered as formal learning. So very simple. So be clear, when we talk about formal learning, it is all about a learning that will lead to a formal qualification and recognition. All right. Then in terms of informal learning here, the last track, furthest right. I'm going from left to the furthest right here. Informal learning on the furthest right. What exactly is informal learning? What kind of learning can we categorize under informal learning? Again, this is also a very simple process. This talks about two forms of learning that we can remember, the two keywords, work and life experiences. For example, we may be working as a QC inspector, quality control inspector in a factory while waiting for STPM results long time ago, or we may be a temporary teacher in one of the primary schools. So these are all work experiences. Then the life experiences could be our hobbies. We may love cooking, we may love photography, we may love arts, and etc. So all these are life experiences that can be considered depending on the specific programs that we wish to undertake in our tertiary studies. Now, lastly, the non-formal learning track. There is always this gray line between what constitute a non-formal and what constitute a formal learning. Now, the non-formal learning, as we understand, is a learning that runs alongside with the mainstream system of education, meaning there will also be a structure to this, but it doesn't lead to a formal qualification. That is the main difference between formal and non-formal learning. Like what we are doing this morning, this seminar that we are attending this morning, is not a formal learning, though you may be given a certificate of participation if you were given a certificate of participation or certificate of attendance at the end of this 2-day seminar. It is not a formal learning, but it is a non-formal learning. So non-formal learning is a structured learning running parallel with the mainstream systems of education. And this would cover things like workshops, short courses, seminars, and conferences. All right. So this is what we need to align our thoughts as to what are the formal, non-formal, informal learning, because all the three categories of APEL ACQ revolves around these three categories of learning. So any question, Dr. Sim or colleagues out there, up to this juncture, any questions?
There is only one on the board, but I think you answered the question. It is, how do we differentiate non-formal and informal learning? So
All
you
right,
gave good
great.
examples for it.
Okay. Thank you. Now, please, colleagues, feel free to chip in any or ask any questions at any point of time. All right. So moving on. This is actually outlining in detail rather than in the summary I've provided just now. So I shall leave this to you later to peruse the content of those three forms of learning here. Now, this is a very simple exercise or discussion among us to see whether we understand the three forms of learning. Now, let me ask this question very quickly among all of us. If you have the question, please either you type it on the chat or number one, self-study and research. What kind of learning is this? Any answer? Let me know if there's any answer on the screen, Dr. Sim.
Yeah.
Self-study and research.
No answer yet. I think people are busy typing. One answer, ODL, non-formal.
Okay, self-study and research. Yes, it is a okay, hold on. There are another question. You said ODL. Is it?
Yes, there's one answer with ODL.
Oh, all right. Now, the question here is actually asking, under which form of learning is self-study and research? Is it non-formal, informal, or formal learning?
So we have 3 non-formals, 1 informal, 2 informal right now, 1 formal learning.
Okay.
2 formal learning.
All right.
So it's a tie between informal and non-formal, 3 against 3.
Okay. All right. Any more from there?
Yeah, so informal and non-formal coming in. Formal, informal. Majority are informal and non-formal.
Okay, so you see, even through the explanation that we have just deliberate or rather provided, it looks like there is still a gray area. That's why, remember, we mentioned, there's always a gray area between the non-formal and informal learning. Now, if you could remember or recall, when I mentioned informal, I talk about life and work experiences. When I mentioned non-formal, I did mention structured and going parallel with the mainstream of education. So, looking at this, self-study may not be structured. And our own research, like for example, if you were to ask me something now, I started to Google, seeking the help of Madam Google or Mr. Google. These two are not non-formal learning. These two are actually informal learning. All right. So moving on to the next one, work experience. Definitely, this is very direct. The answer will be very direct. It is the informal learning. Okay. Now, the next one, volunteer to be in one of the community service group or community work, undertaking a community work. What kind of learning is this? Let me know when the answer comes in, Dr. Simya.
Most of it are saying informal.
Exactly. Very good. This is actually informal learning. Next one, family responsibility.
Informal.
Yes. Hobby or leisure.
Informal.
Informal. Yes.
Yes.
Train and guide others.
Train and guide others. So we are having informal answers. Non-formal. Non-formal, informal. Non-formal.
All right. So this is where, when we speak to the learners, for example, we need to solicit for more information. We need to solicit for more information, meaning we need to see when we talk about training, is it a formal training that I'm conducting, or is just like a brief discussion that I'm having with a particular group of people where there is no structured or where there's no proper structure given? It's just like a discussion with you, training you on certain aspects, like an ad hoc kind of training where there's no particular structure. So if that is the one that we are referring to, then it will be informal. But if the training has a proper structure, then it would be a non-formal learning. So it is how we solicit this information from the learners. All right. So next one, the life experience. Definitely, this is informal. We have spoken about this quite a number of times just now. Attending seminar, conference, or workshop, it is all related to non-formal. Attend short-term courses. Again, this is non-formal, very direct. Competency in other languages. Any feedback? Dr. Sim, let me know if you see any answers coming in.
We have formal, and someone said formal or non-formal. Formal, informal languages is non-formal, and formal, formal. So you have a combination of all three.
Okay, so what we are seeing here is actually how we seek the information that is hidden in the learner. If we are looking at competency, just like for example, you may be fluent in Bahasa, you may also be fluent in English or Mandarin or Arabic. So all this would be under informal. All right. So I hope we are all on the same page here.
Dr. Andy, there is this question about what about if a candidate attend a course and was certified for it?
So if the person attend, let's say, TESOL, teaching English as a second language, it could be a certificate short course, then it will be a non-formal, a short course. But if the certification leads to an award of academic qualification, leading to an award under the MQF or under the education system in school, primary school or secondary school, then that becomes a formal learning. So again, that is why we cannot be saying when you talk about this, it is always informal or non-formal. Sometimes they will slant over to the other formal, informal, or non-formal, depending on the evidence that we seek. So this is very, very important. Remember when we talk about when we talk about accreditation of prior experiential learning, the learning has to be substantiated with evidence. Whether you are talking about direct evidence or whether you're talking about indirect evidence, for example, it could be a testimonial by a boss, it could be an email communication with your vendor to show that you are good at managing a project or whatever it is. We need evidence to support whatever form of learning that we are assessing. And from that evidence, you will be able to tell whether this evidence is actually an informal or non-formal. Because usually the gray area is actually between the in and the non-formal. The formal is quite clear. Anything that leads to a academic qualification. All right. So please feel free to post any questions that you have. Yeah. All right. Now moving on would be this second items in our discussion this morning. Just now was the types and objectives of APEL. All right. It's basically encapsulating the whole landscape of APEL, whether it is A, C, or Q. Now moving on is for us to briefly understand what has led to this birth of APEL. Now the APEL family now is complete. The family is complete now in 2020, as you can see here. The family is fully complete. That means we have the parents, the children in the family now under APEL category. Now, APEL started, if you see the text that I have actually enlarged or used a bigger font size, 2010, then 2016, and 2020. Now, in 2020, the APEL Q guidelines and policies were actually approved at the council meeting in early December, if my memory serves me right, in 2020, approves in the MQA council meeting early December. And 2021, it was then formally announced to all higher education providers on this new initiative by the Ministry of Higher Education and MQA. So as you can see, it takes about, say, 10 years to complete this entire family. That means we bring this family of APEL all together now as a group, the A, C, and Q. All right? So from today onwards, whoever that is attending this seminar session this morning, please share with your colleagues so that they will appreciate that this is not a 1 year, 2 year effort, but rather a decade of effort put in by MQA and of course the higher education providers who have constantly provided very beneficial feedback or constructive feedback to improve on the delivery and the whole structure of APEL. And we all understand as well, in the spirit of the quality assurance, it is all about developmental approach. What we have today will need to be constantly improved on to cater for the relevant and current needs of the learners or even the industries. All right. So this is basically telling us a 10-year effort put in by so many people. And there are some of us who are still here today and some of us who have left us. I mean, they have crossed over to a better place with the Almighty. All right. So we are grateful for all of those people who have in one way or another helped in the evolution of APEL. And thank you so much, colleagues, and definitely being the stakeholders of the institutions, you constitute one of the major stakeholders in the development as well as continuous improvement of APEL. All right. So this is the emergence of APEL. Now, remember there was a question asking us about where exactly is this APEL located. Now, in the revised MQF, which actually look at the amended version in 2017, the first version was in 2007 when LAN, National Accreditation Board, or Lembaga Akreditasi Negara, migrated from LAN LAN to MQA. At that point, this is where the framework was also announced in 2007. That was the first version. Now, then, since then, 2017, they revised the first version to bring in all this track because previously it has academic, vocational, and training tracks separately, 3 tracks, and the 4th track is this lifelong learning APEL. So right now they have consolidated all this under the TVET track. All right. So the vocational and continuing education, or rather TVET, technical and vocational, are now under the same track here. And the academic is where we talk about those different credits leading to the award of the academic qualification based on the various MQF level. So APEL here is here. So it is in the MQF framework ever since the MQF was developed in or announced in 2007. It was already there, and it is still there. All right. This is just to briefly bring you to where exactly this APEL is residing in the Act 679 of MQA. All right. Then of course we all of us did see this in the video just now, that in the spirit of the Trust 3 under the Malaysian Higher Education Blueprint 2015 to 2025, under the 3rd thrust, this is where we talk about building a nation of lifelong learners. And this is where the heart of this is actually APEL driven. All right. So any question before we hop into the APEL-A policies?
I do not see any questions on the Padlet wall, and I think we have a very good group of community. There were questions, but it was answered by other colleagues from MQA. So you have
All
many
right.
assistants here, Dr.
Okay.
Andy.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that whoever MQA is, because I can't see their names here.
Maslina Wati.
Hi,
Puan
Puan
Maslina.
Mas. Thank you so much. Puan Maslina is also one of the pioneer members that were together with us. We were together with her in developing APEL from A, C, and moving on to Q. There are many of them, and definitely Puan Maslina Wati is one of the pioneer members. I'm glad she's with us here this morning. Now, I was wondering whether do we want to take a quick 5 minutes break?
Yeah, I think a comfort break will be good. Maybe
Yeah,
we take a 5 minutes break.
Yeah, otherwise the mind is saturated with all these things that we are looking at.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we will take a 5 minutes break.
Uh-huh.
And if you have, for the participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it on the Padlet wall. So it will just be a short, quick break. Okay. So go and
Alright.
do what you need, or bring your teh tarik and kopi into your room. Okay. See you in a while.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you got your coffee or your teh tarik, and had the needed comfort break. So we will hand the time over to Dr. Andy, and he will continue on from where he left. Dr. Andy, you need to unmute yourself. Dr. Andy, are you saying something? Yes,
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Now I can hear you. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Andy. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sim. Welcome back, colleagues. Just let me go back to this slide of ours. Now, here before we went for our short break just now, we were actually looking at how APEL came into existence in Malaysia, and it takes about 10 years to fully raise this family of APEL comprising ACQ. 10 years, a decade. All right. And the next discussion points or areas that we would like to indulge in is the APEL policies, and we shall start with APEL A policies. Now, the policies are very simple because these are policies that will serve as the guiding principles on how to implement and manage whether it is A, C, or Q. Now, coming on to this APEL A policies. Now, I need all of us, especially present this morning, to remember when we talk about A, there are actually two very specific policies. Two very, very specific policies. Now, one is related to the age. The other one is related to the citizenship. Remember, there were questions in the earlier presentation just now, or where we try to solicit feedback from all of you in relation to what is actually APEL, how much you know about APEL. Now, this APEL A policies indicate that it is actually meant for citizens of Malaysia for now. And if you're looking at foreign, then it will be only the expatriate staff residing in Malaysia for sure. Then the age, this is where the age will kick in the various level of the MQF. Now, as you can see here, we are using this letter T, Thailand T. T means tahap, level. Tahap in Bahasa, level. So you have level 3, level 4, level 6, level 7, level 8. I hope we are now quite familiar with the different levels under the MQF, Malaysian Qualifications Framework. 3 is for certificate, 4 is diploma, 6 is bachelor degree, 7 is master, 8 is doctorate. So if you look at all this, I think we would not dwell onto the details of this policy in relation to the age. But very quickly, you can see the age is reflected as 19, 20, 21, 30, and 35 for the doctorate level in a TA. Now, all of them would not require formal learning except for T7, T8. Do you see at the T7, it will require at least STPM or equivalent or A-level or equivalent, and T8 is actually referring to a bachelor degree. All right. And they do not specify the number of years of experience except for the doctorate level, 5. Okay. So this is it, the APEL A policies. Dr. Sim, let me know if there are questions raised by our colleagues in relation to these policies that we will be deliberating on, whether it is A, C, or Q in this area. All right.
Sure, no questions so far.
Okay. Then moving on. Now, this is just for the sake of colleagues who may only realize about APEL A today. Now, the APEL A, and it was implemented in 2011, they actually limit the number of students coming into the institution via APEL A. And it is clearly indicated last time, in 2011, that only 5% of total population in conventional higher education provider can be admitted via APEL A, and 100% for open universities like AEU, Open University Malaysia, Wawasan Open Universities. These open universities can take in 100% of their students via APEL A. But this change has taken place. And the quota now is 100% students can be admitted to all the higher education providers. And there was a circular by the MHOISHI indicating that all the higher education providers, whether it is public or private, they need to consider students coming with the APEL A. Now, remember in APEL A, we mentioned this is actually a passport allowing them to knock on the doors of every higher education providers. They come with the APEL A to knock, and it doesn't guarantee them the admission status. It doesn't guarantee. Because why I'm saying this is that certain institutions will say, all right, I recognize your A, but I would expect you to take further tests, whether it is in terms of challenge tests or competency tests, before you're allowed to enroll in my specific programs. Because I personally know there are certain institutions that would like to ensure that the candidates they admit to a specific program has some form of competency or knowledge in the required area. So again, reiterating what I have mentioned just now, it is actually a passport allowing them to knock, or rather a permission allowing them to knock at every door. And most of the institutions would consider APEL A without imposing additional instrument or assessment onto the candidates that come knocking at their door with the APEL A. All right. So that's it for APEL A policies. Very simple, very direct. It's about age and it's about citizenship. All right. Now, moving on to the APEL C policies. Now, a lot of the members here this morning or colleagues this morning, I think I could easily say maybe 50% or even 60% of our colleagues here would have implemented APEL C in their respective institutions. So please bear with me for those who have implemented for the sake of some new learners, new kids on the block. We will run through these policies very, very quickly. This is more than 2 compared to the APEL A policies. Now, the policies related to C can be divided into 3 main categories, as you can see here: the general, the award, and how we put these processes in place. So there are 3 broad policies here. Let me run through this very quickly with all of you here. Now, this is slightly different from A because it is also, how to put it, it is also given, or rather the international or foreign students are also given the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of APEL C. So it is a Malaysian and international students. And whoever that's applying for APEL C must be a registered learner of the institution. It cannot be somebody who is applying for admission and we start doing the APEL C assessment. The reason why we are imposing this particular standard or policy is that we also want to safeguard or protect the institution, or to ensure the institution's effort are not wasted. Because APEL C is actually, to be honest, it is very labor intensive, though it helps to promote lifelong learning. It is labor intensive in the sense that when an institution starts to roll out, or academic faculty starts to roll out this APEL C, a lot of work has to be poured in terms of constructing the assessment instrument and the advisory note. That's why we don't want students to approach any institutions and say, can you look at my past experience or prior learning? Can I get credit transferred to your program? No. Unless you're registered students only, then I would initiate the engine to do so. So this is the first one. And secondly, remember just now we talked about the 3 forms of learning: formal, non-formal, and informal learning. Now, APEL C only looks at 2 forms of learning. The non-formal, which is running parallel to the mainstream of education. Remember, we are talking about workshops, seminars, and conferences. And the informal learning here is all about the work experience and life experiences. So APEL C focuses on this. Now, you may ask me, Andy, what about the formal learning? No, the formal learning would not be under APEL C, but it will be under the formal credit transfer recognition. And you remember those who may be involved in the credit transfer application in your own institution, there's this thing like if you come with a diploma, accredited diploma, applying to do a bachelor degree, then the maximum credit transfer allowable is 30% and you must fulfill 4 main criteria. So those have been covered under the formal learning. Therefore, C only focuses on non-formal and informal, all right? And looking at this, it covers all areas of MQF, right from area 3 up to area 8. But the courses in the program would be courses that are done through a program that is a coursework-based program or mixed mode for postgraduate programs. For research-based, APEL C is not applicable, meaning our MPhil, Master of Philosophy, and Doctor of Philosophy, 100% research-based, cannot be considered for APEL C. All right?
Dr. Andy, we do
Yes.
have a question on the chat. Some candidates may seek advice before they register. So how do we advise them on the expected number of credit transfer? Is that possible?
Okay. We cannot advise because remember we were talking about when we assess this non-formal and informal, it is very unique. And we have to be able to solicit this information or unlock this unique experience to map it against the course learning outcome. So it is very, very difficult. If you were to ask me, it's very, very difficult because if we start setting the expectation, for example, let's say, Dr. Sim, if you come to me with your work experience and I tell you, Dr. Sim, oh, based on this, I think you can get 30 credits. So that is going to be a bit very, setting the wrong expectations. All right. I would personally advise not to do this because it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. Unless you are willing to go down the journey to look at the various evidence and map it against the course learning outcome as a general rule of thumb. But that doesn't guarantee you the credit transfer yet.
Yeah, so the advice would be not recommended because
Yeah,
it's very labor intensive and we cannot guarantee anything.
Correct.
Right?
Because once you tell the learners, then we are setting the expectation and the learner will come hitting hard on us later.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Andy.
Okay. So then we move on to the award of the credits here. So if you look at this award of the credits here, certainly it is for programs that are approved by MOHE and MQA, and I'm sure any programs that are offered by higher education institution would have already gotten PA before they can be rolled out. And this APEL C are credit transfer without grade. All right, and it's not credit exemption because when we talk about credit exemption, there will be replacement courses, even though I've granted you the credit transfer. All right, then the next one would be when the course in a program or the specific programs are tied to any professional bodies, then it is the responsibility of the institution to check with the professional bodies whether they do recognize APEL C as one of the track in the academic program. Because we don't want at the end of the day when the students complete the whole program and suddenly the professional bodies before they register them as a member suddenly see that in the transcript there is this a course known as, let's say, microeconomics, and suddenly they say they see it there as CT APEL. That means given APEL credit transfer, then they may not recognize. We don't want this situation to happen at that stage, which is not going to be good for the institutions themselves. That's why the institutions have to seek the approval directly from the professional bodies. And The percentage of credit transfer, as you can see here, inclusive of the formal credit transfer that we mentioned just now, can go up to 60%. All right. This is on the award of credit. And of course, the other aspects on the award of credit is that it cannot be transferred automatically to another program. It cannot be transferred automatically to another program. What I'm trying to say here, for example, you may have two courses with the same course name of the course, all right? But if the students start switching from program A to program A to program B, sorry, and they want to transfer the credits that we awarded through APEL-C, we must make sure, at the very least, the learning outcomes of those two programs are the same. If the learning outcomes are the same, then we can transfer whatever we granted in the CT APEL, APEL-C to the learner into another program. This is what it is trying to advocate here. And the award of credit through APEL-C is equivalent to the credit value. That means we are not considering partial credit. If I'm assessing you based on a credit of a course of 4 credits, either it is all or none. Either I give you the entire 4 credits or I don't give you the credits at all. I cannot say I give you 2 credits out of 4 and the other 2 credits you must do a project paper. No. So it is all or none when we talk about APEL-C. And the credits awarded is specific to the course. It cannot be applied automatically to prerequisites. Let me provide you a very simple example. Between a 2 economics paper, you have macroeconomics, you have microeconomics. So if I apply for macroeconomics and I'm given the APEL-C for that macroeconomics, we cannot automatically grant APEL-C for the prerequisite of macro, which is the microeconomics. There have to be another separate assessment for microeconomics for APEL-C. All right, so I hope we are clear on this. If I grant you on any credits, it doesn't mean that the prerequisites will be granted as well. No, there will be a separate assessment done on that part. All right, and this is what I was trying to share in the previous slide, separate assessment for each course. All right, and here you can see what are the courses that cannot be APEL-C. Very simple. It is the final year project and the dissertation. All right. So this brings me to the part where if the person is supposed to undertake an industrial training or internship, that can be considered for APEL-C. That means there must be a proper mechanism derived for that. And I'm not sure how many institutions or colleagues from your own institutions have this program called Executive Diploma. Executive Diploma is actually packed at level 4, MQF level 4 diploma. And it is a 90 credit program, and 30 credits of this program can be granted credit transfer based on the prior learning. So we must use the APEL-C instrument to assess that. All right. Any question from colleagues?
Dr. Andy, there's no question on the chat, but personally, I have a question, which is, for example, if we grant credit transfer for a particular subject, but the prerequisite, there's no subjects fulfilling the prerequisite. So can we still grant credit transfer for that particular subject?
You mean that subject doesn't have a prerequisite?
No, I mean, that subject has a prerequisite. Just taking back, say, for whatever reason, an institution has microeconomics, and before microeconomics, they say you need to do this maths paper, okay? I mean, most institutions won't have that.
All right.
But right now, I've taken a micro paper and it maps to this microeconomics, but I don't have the maths paper. So,
Okay, because when we look at APEL C, we are actually recognizing the non-formal and informal learning. All right. So, irregardless whether you have done the prerequisite or not, I can still award you the credit transfer. But it is now, if the institution or the policy that you have said you have to do maths before you do microeconomics, this is where you have to go back to the learner and say, well, I am awarding you this, but I will still require you to complete the maths paper. So either you would want him to complete the maths paper through the traditional track, where the person will register for the course in the semester, or you even do an APEL C for that maths paper.
okay. Dr. Andy, I'm quite mindful of time. We have maybe just about another 15 minutes. It's
All right.
47 right now. All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Dr.
All right.
Andy.
All right. So in the interest of time, we'll probably run through the salient points. All right, we'll run through the salient points. Now, the implementation process, I think this is fairly straightforward. The only thing that probably I would like to highlight is on the third bullet. When we award courses with APEL C, the transcript must be reflected as CT APEL. All right. And again, if it's a credit transfer without the grades, so it is not counted in the calculation of the GPA or CGPA. Only the credits are counted. And we have to substantiate this with the Malaysian qualification statement. Now, please go to the MQA website, look at what exactly is embedded in this MQS. So anybody who is awarded the APEL C credit transfer, MQS has to be given as a supplementary document before, or rather together with the transcript. All right. And bullet number 4 is where I would like to highlight as well. The students who have failed APEL assessment cannot retake the APEL C. They have to go back to the traditional track. All right. And students who have undertaken the course through the traditional track cannot apply for APEL C. So this is the rule of thumb for now. All right. So this is something very, very interesting on APEL Q policies. Let me run through this with you again. Now, again, this covers Malaysians and international students. All right. Bullet number 1. And the only requirements related to APEL Q is the number of years of experience in the relevant field. Look at the figures here corresponding to the various academic qualification under the MQF, from 25 years up to 5 years. All right. So this is the minimum entry requirement. And of course, there's this fine print below there. If learners with special or exceptional prior experiential learning, then there will be a deviation in the number of years. All right. And this is under the discretion and academic judgment of the Senate. And here, let me draw your attention. Look at number 3 here. It covers formal, informal, and non-formal. Not like APEL C. APEL C only covers formal and informal, all right? This is like APEL A, it covers the 3 forms of learning. And number 4, all MQF level except fully research-based program. It's just like APEL C, except fully research-based program. And this one is assessment through the prior experiential learning. Remember, right from the beginning, there was this slide on portfolio, field and validation visit, and the challenge test, plus the capstone courses. So those are the assessment instrument in the APEL Q. Then the award of qualifications, again, this is what I've mentioned, only for non-research-based program, number 1. And number 2, this is slightly different because it's only meant for fully accredited program, because we don't want a provisional program to be granted APEL Q to students, because should at the stage of full accreditation, the institution fails to get the full accreditation status, then whoever that is granted APEL Q would be in a very difficult position, because the programs are not accredited at all. All right. Then the assessment separately for each program, as we mentioned right from the beginning, and the instruments also we have mentioned. And number 5, again, if it's related, programs related or under the purview of the professional bodies, the onus is on the institution to seek their approval. All right. Then the implementation process, again, all learners will have to apply through MQA as a focal point, just like how we did for the APEL A. And the application is only, or rather the learners are only given one choice of the institution to register for APEL Q. This is why we don't want the learners to beat the system by registering for a similar APEL Q program across various institutions. And number 3, it is outcome-based. It is testing on the PLO. Number 4, it is telling us that the scroll academic transcript will be given to APEL Q students. And you may ask me, Andy, how am I going to depict the CGPA when there is no credit value to my portfolio, etc., and etc.? That is actually weighted on the percentage, not on credit value. All right. And there is a maximum duration on the completion of the APEL Q programs, as you can see in number 6 here. All right. And quickly, the assessment instrument in any APEL, whether it's A, Q, A, C, or Q, they will always look at 2 core principles, the academic and administrative principles. And we are all academics, mostly all academics here would understand what are the academic principles here. And this is all outcome-based driven. So in terms of the learning, in terms of the assessment, and we must get the right panel of experts in the assessment process. Then the second aspect would be on the administrative side. So this is where whether you are doing an A, or C, or a Q, all this should be in place so that it builds up the confidence of the public, as well as fulfilling the standards of prescribed by MQA. All right. And these are the guiding principles which all of us would be fully aware when we talk about APEL assessment. It's all about the prior learning, and it is outcome based, not so much on the experience, but how we learn, what is acquired through or the learning acquired through the experience. All right. Then the APEL A instrument. These are the 3 main instruments that are adopted: aptitude test, portfolio, and interview. Now, we don't have time, even if we were to do it for another 2 hours, to go into the nitty-gritty details of each instrument here. But I would like to draw your attention as to how these instruments are built into assessing the various level of academic qualification. T3 is certificate, T4 is diploma, T6 is a bachelor degree, T7 is a master degree. So look at the instruments that are built into assessing all this APEL A. All right. Now, let me draw your attention to T3 and T4. T3 and T4 right now is assessed centrally through MQA. And the main instruments are actually aptitude tests. The portfolio has to be submitted, but will not be assessed. And these are the weightages of the different instruments, aptitude test, portfolio, interview, in building the assessment instrument. All right. And the criteria or the standards, or rather the LOs or dimensions or domains that we are assessing in APEL A focuses on this 7 domains here. All right. And for APEL C instrument, it is only these 2 main instruments, the challenge test and the portfolio. All right. Now the APEL Q instrument here, remember it is going back to these 3 major instruments that we mentioned just now: the portfolio, the field and validation visit, the FVV, and the challenge test. And they have to complete the capstone course. And let me draw your attention to this next slide here. Look at the weightages contributing to the 100% of the APEL-Q assessment, 20, 30, 30. So our GPA will be calculated on the weighted average of these various modes of instruments. All right. Then lastly, the implementation. Now the APEL A, these are what we would term them as the Pusat Penilaian APEL, the APEL assessment centers that are appointed since 2019. You have all these 6 institutions that have been appointed by MQA to help them assess learners that are coming through the APEL A track. And there will be more institutions coming into this the domain of being a PPA here. And I understand right now every institutions now can actually apply to become PPA to assess learners for their for candidates who express interest to pursue their studies in the respective institutions. All right, check with MQA on this. Then the APEL A processes, basically we have run through this earlier when we begin on the deliberation of how APEL A is conducted. And here, this is where, remember there was a question how this is going to be done through the MQA portal. You will go into the MQA portal, click on this APEL icon. Sorry, now when you click on the APEL A MQA icon, which is this, it will come to this section, then click on the APEL A Access, and they will go into this particular section and start registering. So once they register, they will pick the PPA, the assessment center that we spoke about, all right? And these are the information that they fill in. These are the field of studies, just to show you roughly what are the field of studies offered by the various institutions that are assessing the APEL A. And there is always a fees tagged to this, and this is payable to the institutions where the learners register for the APEL A. It's a standard price for all, standard fees for all. And this is a passport that we mentioned just now, how it will look like at the end of the day. All right. Now, the APEL C implementation basically referred to this guideline, and I think this can be downloaded in the MQA website as well. This is the guidelines to good practices for APEL C, and it covers all these 4 broad areas. Now, for now, there are about 30 institutions that have approved to conduct APEL C in their respective institutions up to now, about 30. And in Malaysia, there are 400 over, I think 450 or 440 higher education institutions. That means there are a lot more out there that have not expressed interest or may not be ready for now to launch APEL C. But we have to have this done very quickly, because without APEL C, you cannot roll out APEL Q. All right. So over here, these are some of the studies done by MQA on the number of credits that were approved, on the number of applications submitted in the respective institutions that have given approval to conduct APEL-C. So look at the numbers are increasing over time, and this is the number of credits, the number of candidates who have passed or given the APEL-C credit. So you will see a lot of them are coming for the various Tahap 4, Tahap 6, Tahap 7, which is the diploma, bachelor, and the master. The most APEL-C application is actually at the bachelor degree level. So this would tell you an indication where the trend is right now, for now. Then these are the field of studies that students have applied for APEL-C. So you roughly also get an indication to see where are the common discipline that people would apply for APEL-C, or where are the working adults. If you look at this, the highest number comes from early childhood education, followed by OSHA, all right, the Pengurusan Keselamatan dan Kesihatan Pekerjaan, all right, the Occupational Safety and Health program. So I'll leave these to you to peruse later. Then this is basically how the application process have to be followed through by the learners. And if the institution is intending to apply for the approval process, this is another flow of procedures that a person has to go through, the institution has to go through. Then application of credit transfer here is, in a nutshell, it is trying to tell us what the policies have been outlined for. If you look at all this, it has been covered under the policies. Okay. Then the implementation of APEL-Q. Dr. Sim, probably just give me 5 or 10 minutes. I'll try to wrap this up very quickly.
Sure, sure.
I'm sorry for not keeping to the time, colleagues. And in case if you have already made a prior engagement, please feel free to move on, yeah? Then on the implementation of APEL-Q, let me bring you to the journey of an APEL-Q student. Look at this journey. First, it starts off with the counseling process. It is always the same generic process, even for APEL-C. There will be counseling, and after that is where the institutions will probably register the learner and perform a self-assessment exercise. And once the self-assessment is done and under the guidance by an advisor, then the advisor would say, I recommend this candidate for the application of APEL-Q, or I do not recommend this candidate for the application of APEL-Q. This is very important because if the self-assessment is not done, imagine we are putting this candidate through the whole chain of APEL-Q processes, and we have to initiate all the assessment instruments. That means the assessors would be appointed, questions would be set, rubrics would be set, test specification table would be set. If you're looking at challenge tests, everything or every resource will be mobilized. And if the candidate is not eligible and we still subject the candidates through the track, we are not only wasting the time of the candidate, but also the academics or the institution. So we do not want that to happen. And this is why very, very important that the advisor plays a critical role in recommending whether this person should go or should not go ahead with the test or the application. All right. So this is actually outlining how the assessment will be like. So meaning it is going to be sequential order. The learners have to complete our portfolio before they move on to FEV, before they move on to challenge tests. If should they fail in any stage, they cannot proceed to the subsequent stage. And they are given 3 opportunities for receipt, only 3. After that, they have to graciously exit the system. And in supporting the learning of these students, we can give them enhancement courses. And these are actually courses from your traditional track. We can allow the students to audit the course or give them the materials belonging to the conventional track so that we reinforce the learning of the students apart from the prior experiential learning. Now in B, you will see it is stated there as PLOs are tested across. Now we are all mindful that in the MQF version 2, the domains or the classes of learning outcomes are segregated into 11 PLOs. So when we assess an entire academic program for APEL Q, we are assessing based on the 11 PLOs. And the 11 PLOs are tested across the portfolio, FVV, and challenge tests. It can be 3 PLOs in portfolio, 4 PLOs in FVV, or 6 PLOs in challenge tests. So it can be an overlapping PLOs in the program, and it need not be like the first portfolio, 11 PLOs, 2 FVV field and validation visit, another 11 PLOs. No, 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 no. All right. We have to actually see where the PLOs are would be helpful in assessing the prior experiential learning of the students. And to pass each stage, they have to obtain a minimum 50% score for each PLOs. All right? And receipt and also the CGPA. And once they have gone through these 3 stages, portfolio, FVV, and challenge test, they have to complete the capstone course. In any program, as I mentioned, there will be a capstone course. So when, take for example, if we're talking about a master program by coursework, the project would be the capstone course. All right, a bachelor degree, sometimes you have a final year project. That will be a capstone course. In certain programs, the higher level courses or the final semester courses may be our capstone course. So the institution must be able to tell MQA when you apply for APEL Q, what are the capstone courses in the program. And these are the courses that the students will need to register for. Other than that, they don't have to register for any courses. They just need to go through the portfolio, FVV, and challenge tests. All right. Okay, I think that's the end of the sharing session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, maybe we just take, because this question had been on the chat for quite some time, we'll just answer this question and then we'll end the workshop. Please, participants, do stay back for a photo taking session later with Dr. Andy. Yeah. So the questions is, if the advisor happens to be also the teaching staff for the course, then can the advisor also be the assessor? I think this was for APEL A. Yeah.
Okay,
And then the subsequent questions from also the same person is, for students applying for admission to the university who are also an APEL A evaluation center, then do they need to apply to MQA or can they be assessed directly by this institution?
Okay, I'm clear on the first question. Let me handle the first question here. And it doesn't only it doesn't only apply to A, but it applies across A, C, and Q. There are 3 main stakeholders here: the advisor, the assessor, as well as the moderator. When we are assessing a candidate, let's say candidate A, we must ensure that these 3 individuals cannot play dual role. Meaning, if I'm Andy, I cannot be advisor and assessor to candidate A. But I can be advisor and assessor separately to candidate A and B. I hope I answered this question clearly. Remember, if it's a similar candidate, the individual cannot play more than one role. All right?
Yes, that's clear.
The second question, actually, I'm not quite clear. Is the person asking about permission to run C and Q?
No, I think the question is, say for example, Wawasan Open University is also a center to evaluate, right?
Yes.
So if the students go to WOU, do they need to apply to MQA for the, for the going through the checking for APEL A, or they can just directly apply to the university?
Okay, there are two things here probably we need to be very clear. If the candidate has decided to pursue higher education in Wawasan, all right, and Wawasan is is a PPA, then the candidate doesn't have to apply through MQA portal. This is what I understand. But if the candidate is not expressing interest to study in Wawasan, but just want to take the APEL A assessment, then the candidates would have to register in the APEL A portal.
All right. I thank you very much, Dr. Andy. I think that is very clear. We would like to, yes, I would like to try my pantun as well. Tumbuh di taman bunga melati, anak bermain di tepi jalan. Terima kasih, Dr. Liew Andy, APEL, AC dan Q di suluh jalan.
Thank you.
Dr. Andy, can we request for you to turn on your, yes.
Yeah, my video is on.
Yes, your video is on. And I will stop sharing. Just hang on for a moment. Let me just take a photo of that. And to other participants, I will request the facilitator to allow you to turn on your video so that you can also turn it on. Just hang on for a moment.
We have quite a number of our MQA friends here. Happy to see them, Mazlina, Zamrin, Amran.
All right. I'm not sure. Are you able to turn on your video? Let me just say start video. All right, guys, I've gave you the access. Yes, I can see participants turning on their video. Thank you very much. Yes. So just stay at that particular position for some time because we have quite a few participants here and I will need to make multiple screenshots. Yeah. So just freeze your smiling face for a moment. All right. I will start taking right now and I will continue to move on to the next screen. So just keep your freezing face there, okay?
Oh, hello. I think people are just coming on. I can see the videos are on. Hi, Hafiza. Oh, Helmi is also here. All these familiar faces.
Yeah, just hang on for a moment. I have 4 screens to take.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. I am not able to address you individually because there are so many of us. But I'm happy that I can see faces now, tagged to the name, real life faces.
Dr. Andy, your session has been very informative. I've learned a lot.
Thank you so much. I hope it is beneficial to all that are present this morning as well.
Just hang on for another moment. I still have 2 more screens to go, yeah?
Oh, you mean you're taking the photo now?
Yes, I'm taking photo.
Well, you better tell some of us because I see the roof of a car. Seriously, this is especially Noliza. I think I'm not sure Noliza. Where are you?
Hang on.
Now at least we can see Noliza better. Just now was on the roof of the car. So sorry you got trapped in the car.
I will retake that shot.
Yeah, hi Prof Hanim.
Okay, just a moment. Okay. Just keep your smiling face on, yeah? Okay, one last one, yeah? Smile. All right. Thank you very much,
You're
everyone.
welcome. Oh, I can see.
And yes, and especially to Dr. Andy.
Yep.
So, dear participants, we are not going to have a evaluation workshop by workshop, but we will have an evaluation on the whole arrangement of the track A at the end of the day at 4 p.m. So right now it will be lunch break. And we will leave this room on so you can stay connected, or if you get yourself disconnected, please come in through the link that was provided to you earlier. And we will be seeing each other at 2 p.m. for our next session, which is on, hang on, yeah, on micro credential by Professor Dr. Abdul Karim Alias. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you once again, Dr. Andy.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you guys, Prof. Rosia, Professor Glenda. I'm trying to pick up names that are familiar names. So thank you so much. Till we meet again. God bless.